Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm Beth Siegert of Siegert and Associates, and I'm so happy you could join myself today. And I cannot wait to get started because we have a wonderful guest speaker. So I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about me, you can take a look at my CV on www.siegertandassociates.com. But just to quickly let you know, I'm a certified professional coach, a certified professional recovery coach. I'm also a certified facilitator of addiction awareness. I'm certified in family coaching, and I have my certifications in excellence coaching for executives. So I guess you could say I coach a little bit. All right, so today we're going to discuss a little bit about playing a critical role and how HR can enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I really hope to stimulate and motivate you in your interest in the recovery process when it comes to your work. This presentation, by all means, does not cover everything we could possibly cover, but we are focusing on the highlights today. And it's definitely not intended to replace proper medical care when needed. We're going to discuss a little bit about how to reevaluate alcohol in the workplace in terms of recruitment and celebrations, how to expand resource groups and affinity groups, easy ways for employers to support recovery at work, and how to enhance DEI at your company through certified facilitators of addiction awareness. Quite a wonderful group of people. So today, let's just try to put our hats on and think a little bit about, do we need in our company to update our DEI plan? And hands down, most people say to me, oh yes, it's been a long time. Let's see what we can do about that today. We know this pandemic has led to a significant increase in the daily stressors that every one of us is under, caused by social distancing, isolation. People are experiencing unexpected life changes during the pandemic, and including things like job loss, job uncertainty, financial stressors, and on top of all of that, of course, what's going on in our home life. Kids are being homeschooled. You're trying to find a place to have your office. You know, I never thought that the master bathroom would become an office, if you will, right? So we've really had to be very creative during this pandemic. But now we're looking at, oh my gosh, I have to go back to work. I'm used to having my 9 a.m. snack, or I'm used to cracking that beer at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I can't do that when I'm in my office. I wonder if that might be a little bit of an issue. So why don't we discuss what we can do as employers to help out our people return to work in the best possible way they can. I am so excited. I'm so glad Cheryl was able to fit us in her schedule. So I'm going to be really quiet and really introduce our speaker, Cheryl Brown Merriweather. She's VP and Executive Director of the International Center for Addiction and Recovery Education, otherwise known as ICARE. Wonderful, wonderful group. And she's president of the Greater Orlando Society of Human Resources Management. And she's also an educator at the University of Phoenix. Cheryl, I could go on and on for hours about you, but I would just love to introduce you and take it away, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you so much, Beth, and thank you all for joining us today. You clearly could be somewhere else doing other things, so we're just really grateful that you chose to spend a little time with us today. And Beth, thank you for mentioning the pandemic within the pandemic. It really is an understatement to say that COVID-19 has led to a significant increase in daily stressors for many people. In addition to the stress, and you mentioned some of these caused by social distancing, increased isolation, and recently we are seeing mask wars. Many people have just experienced unexpected and permanent life changes. Again, the job loss, the business closures, financial and economic setbacks, insecurity all over the place, sickness or death of friends, family, loved ones. The resulting anxiety and depression has just led to the dramatic increases in the use and misuse of addictive substances and behaviors, and even in the case of many, sadly, increased suicide and overdoses. The statistics are alarming. How is this affecting the workplace? We're HR practitioners, so this is important to us. Well, even before the pandemic, we have data that tells us that 70% of employees that misuse alcohol or drugs are employed, either full or part-time. And 67% of HR managers say they know that employees misuse drugs. But in spite of that fact, in the workplace, we deal with what I call a sickness of silence. And this is a very serious problem. Corporate cultures are largely silent on this subject, and employees don't dare talk about addiction or recovery out loud because they are afraid or because of the stigma. And as a result, they just don't have accurate information about this disease, and they don't know where to go or to reach out for help for themselves or for their family members who also might need help or assistance.
We have a couple quick little polls we're going to be doing throughout the presentation, and here's the first one. Have you had experience with employees being high at work? These are anonymous. We're not going to be able to see who answers what. We would appreciate it if you would go ahead in and answer the question, please. So we have 50% say yes and 50% say no. All right.
Sure. Our beliefs, our attitudes, and our policies in the workplace, and HR is very influential in establishing those. That's what identifies to the workforce what is acceptable behavior in the company. And that is set, those things, those guidelines, and that influence is set by senior leadership. And then it cascades down throughout the organization and spreads to everyone else at all levels. So when we think about the role of alcohol in the workplace, this is a good time to just ask the question, how much is alcohol a part of your workplace culture? And how do people that do not consume alcohol participate in those activities? And I think this is a very important question because organizational leaders may not realize that up to 1/3 of the population does not drink alcohol for a variety of reasons. So for example, individuals may be in personal recovery from a substance use disorder, or they may just be concerned about their health, or they may choose not to drink for religious or for cultural or for lifestyle reasons. And with diversity and inclusion becoming a top concern for many workplaces, this is a very important and key statistic for all of us to remember.
And we have another poll for you all. Have you ever been offered an alcoholic drink at work during work hours? 100% said yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
As HR practitioners, what do we do when we suspect or we know that a member of our team has gotten to the point where they have lost control with respect to their use of alcohol or other substances? This can be particularly challenging because once an employee has passed the initial pre-employment drug screen, and we could do an entire session just talking about drug screens, but we as HR practitioners typically only address those issues when there's a critical incident or an accident in a reactive manner. That's the point at which we get involved, and we may refer the employee to an EAP service provider or initiate disciplinary action.
Are you aware of any corporation who has found themselves in litigation over someone's substance use disorder behaviors? While we're getting the poll results, I'll just let people know that I've worked for over a decade and a half with my husband, who's a forensic and clinical psychologist, and I've worked in this area and done research. And let me tell you, I have some casework that I'm going to be sharing with Cheryl, and we're going to be doing another discussion on how serious this really is in the workplace. And so look for that coming up.
Not so much on this one. We have a lot of no's on this one, Beth.
Right, but guess what? There's yeses coming.
So while you're polling on that, let's talk about this new approach, if we can. Business, employee resource, and diversity and equity, inclusion, and affinity groups. Just because I changed my screen, what was the final result on that poll, Beth?
Oh, we had 75% no, 25% yes. However, I'm glad you went back to that, Cheryl. Thank you. what also we need to talk about probably at a later date is how quiet companies stay about this information. Most people have no idea the litigation that their corporations have. Usually only your HR people, and even then, if they go to outside counsel, they may not really know what's going on. They may have to provide records and things like that to people who are in the middle of the litigation, but they may not really know what's happening. So it's one of those secret things that we talked about, Cheryl, those hidden things that most people don't know, and it's really important for companies to be aware of that. So you can hire someone in to be proactive so you don't end up spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in these cases.
And you have some great case studies about that. So we will definitely have to find an opportunity to share those with folks.
I'm excited about that.
You make important points about the silence. So this is the heart of our talk here today, Beth. What would it look like if we could change the workplace culture regarding the use of alcohol or other substances, and break the silence? The good news is there are exciting alternatives to the traditional ways in which these matters are approached in the workplace. And the new approach can be based upon the success of business or employee resource groups, depending upon what the term you're familiar with, BRGs or ERGs. But those are company sanctioned and employee-led groups. And also the expansion of existing diversity and inclusion or affinity groups. Again, the terminology may vary, but we're talking about those groups can be expanded to include employees in recovery, or those who desire to access information or resources or help, guess what, before a critical incident or accident occurs. And there are others who would just simply like to learn more about substance use and addiction. Our participants today may not know, Beth, that there are approximately 23 million people in the U.S. that are in recovery, and 26% of employed adults have substance use or addiction in their families. So, like many individuals that hide or cover inside the workplace because of fear or stigma, if we can provide safety for them, they will be able to come out and add value to the workplace.
Absolutely, Cheryl. Absolutely. And I did miss something in the chat. I apologize. Someone asked, is this because of stigma on the part of the corporation? But our companies are, yeah, right. The users are not talking, but the corporations are not speaking also. So thank you. I apologize that I missed that on the chat. And Cheryl, that is an extraordinarily important. 23 million people in the US are in recovery. And I do share this. I recently celebrated 33 continuous years. So there are many, many of us out there. We don't necessarily have it branded across our forehead, but we're typically the people who show up to work on time, do what we're supposed to do, and take things pretty responsibly. And Cheryl and I have talked that I'll share some of my early experiences in the 80s and 90s being a recovery person in the corporate world. It was not a simple thing to do, and I'm looking forward to helping our corporations make it more palatable for those of us in recovery and include us. Don't make us feel like outliers in that respect. I think it would be very helpful because you're missing out on a lot of really great people.
That's our mission, Beth. We're united in championing that cause. And the question about stigma, real quickly, I'll just add to that. It's not limited to individuals or to the company as an entity. Stigma is pervasive throughout our entire society. Just the name addiction draws pictures to people's minds that are not really reflective of what we're talking about when we look at everyday people who struggle with these issues. But the negative connotation and stigma is pervasive and it crosses all socioeconomic demographic groups. It just internal, external, and that's what we're fighting to overcome. And we have some help. That's the good news, is we have help with programs such as the ones reflected on your screen now. In 2019, 2019, Ruby Warrington published a book titled Sober Curious, and she started a movement among people that want to explore their personal relationships with alcohol. And with the help of people in recovery like Beth and the other 23 million people that are in recovery, and people in the health and wellness industry, those professionals, and also promoters of things like non-alcoholic beverages and events. You see the reference to the mocktail bar here. The Sober Curious movement has rapidly expanded, and this provides a great opportunity for organizations that are seeking to change their corporate culture with respect to the use of alcohol and other substances. Company-sponsored events can include non-alcoholic beverages. Your company can encourage and promote educational webinars or workshops, or provide online training and access to addiction awareness resources. You can also sponsor, guess what, special events during Dry January or as part of other corporate wellness events. And lastly, our company, the Center for Addiction and Recovery Education, we can work in partnership with your company, just like we're working in partnership with a company called Global Health Metrics. They have created, with our help, a healthy self checkup, which is a health risk assessment designed to specifically provide employees confidentially information that helps them identify their personal behaviors and risks relating to alcohol and other substances. So lots of new things coming that are able to be introduced into the workplace to help make some progress in changing the culture, with employee support and company sponsor.
Fantastic. I am so looking forward to trying the healthy self checkup. Because no matter how many days, months, or years you are in recovery or you are curious, it's always important to make sure that you're touching base with what's going on with yourself.
And we can make that happen, not only for you, Beth, but for others on this call that may have a desire to access and learn more about that too. We can certainly make that happen. So the last thing I think I want to speak about today, and I thank you for your patience if I go over just a little bit with our time, but I think it's real important that our attendees know that as we move forward into hopefully a post-COVID-19 but still very disrupted world, we will still suffer the lingering effects of alcohol and substance misuse to a great extent. From an HR perspective, the data associated with these things is what is called a lagging indicator. So we will continue to see the numbers, troubling numbers, expand and increase for some time to come. And because of that, the need for mental and behavioral health services, there's just not enough of that. The need exceeds the number of mental health service providers and EAP service providers that are available. But good news is that there are individuals like Beth that have been professionally trained and certified by reputable institutions. Our organization is one, and those folks are available to work with your company to help you implement some of these creative solutions that we have discussed today. We do have certified facilitators in addiction awareness, and they are qualified to deliver educational lunch and learns and other training workshops. And in addition to those facilitators, which by the way, your company can send an individual to go through our training program and become an in-house certified facilitator in addiction awareness. But beyond that, some companies have retained the services of certified professional recovery coaches, and those coaches have been trained and are qualified to help struggling employees ideally before they have a need for formal clinical services or treatment, but also for employees who have gone through clinical services but need some additional one-on-one support. So the certified professional recovery coach can step in and help facilitate those type of arrangements with you as well.
Thank you, Cheryl. We have one more quick poll and then I'll get to the chat. Okay, oops, I forgot to stop sharing that one. Last one. Very quickly, do you know or suspect a coworker who's continued this behavior while working from home during the pandemic? Someone who you know may have been having some issues before, but boy, the stories, and I know we're over time, so I'm not going to share them, but oh my goodness. I was telling Cheryl just about my grandchildren and what some of their teachers have seen on their screens when they're teaching the children. Parents walking behind with a beer in their hand at 10 a.m., smoking a joint in their underwear. Isn't that lovely for all those little 7-year-olds to see? So these are just things that are happening at home. How are we going to help these people re-enter the workplace in a healthy and helpful manner? And 100%. Yes. Not surprised, are we? Right? So I know we're running out of time, but we do have something in the chat. Oh yes, I would love to get a recording for this particular Beth of Fresh Air meeting. Absolutely. Please shoot me an email and we'll make sure that you get that. You can have the uncut version, if you will, with some of my faux pas, but that's okay.
And mine.
Hey, we're in this together. So for my information, feel free to take a screenshot if you'd like to, give me a quick call, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to talk with you about what services I could provide. And if I can't provide them, I will definitely refer you to Cheryl and some of the groups. I myself have been trained by the IAPRC and the International Center for Addiction and Recovery Education. And I would be more than happy to pass that information on to you all too.